Okay, so let's finish up this last problem right here. This is, again, a graph that's provided for you. I already labeled the coordinates over here, and really those are the only things that you need to calculate or to determine what is the equation of this function. Okay, so again, let me show you the easiest way to do this problem, and then I'll show you that we can write this same graph using both sine and cosine, okay? Depending on which one is the easier way. All right, so you have these are, again, relative maxes. This is called a relative min. And so I need to figure out which function to use. And I start by looking at where x is equal to 0. Notice it starts at the midline, right? It doesn't look like it's going to be at the amplitude or the max or the min. And so using the sine function would probably be the easiest. So I'm going to write f of x is equal to a sine of bx plus k. Again, you don't need to use the phase shift, because if we pick the easiest function to describe this graph, then we don't need a phase shift, okay? That will be in terms of cosine. All right, so again, go through the process of calculating our amplitude. That's 1/2 max minus min, 1/2 1 minus -3. All right, this is my min, this is my max. And it looks like your amplitude is just going to be 2. Calculate your k while you're at it, right? That's 1/2 max plus the min, so 1 plus -3. We're going to get -2/2, which is just -1. So that's my midline. And last but not least, you also have a period, which you need to calculate to determine what the b is, right? So remember, the period is the horizontal length of one cycle. So the distance between here and here, right, is just 5/2 minus 1/2, which is just 2. And so if that's my period, I'm going to calculate period is 2 pi over b. So 2 is equal to 2 pi over b. And I calculate my b, just if I cancel out these, cancel out the 2's over here, b is just going to equal 2 pi. Okay, so I shouldn't have crossed off the pi there. I'll just erase this. Okay, so I got my b, I got my amplitude, I got my k. I can write the equation of the graph. F of x is equal to 2 sine of pi x minus 1. Okay, so that would be the easiest way to do this problem. Again, this is for your information, right? It's like if I want to write this graph a different way, the harder way would be to write it in terms of cosine. And just like how I did here on the previous problem, right? If I were to write this in cosine, right? If I think the cosine graph basically would have this graph shifted over this way. So let me kind of just draw a rough sketch. It will look something like this. Right, this would be the cosine graph. Again, this will be my midline. We'll say maybe this is y is equal to, in this case, y is equal to -1. So this would be cosine of something, right? Okay, but I don't want the cosine, right? I basically want to shift this graph, right? So this amplitude right here, sorry, this max right here needs to be shifted over this direction, right? So hopefully you can see that I need to shift this graph this way to make it look like that. And how do I shift it that way? I just need to calculate whatever this is. And again, whatever that is basically the width of my interval of the period. And we calculate the period, right? The period, if you remember, is just, I have it right here, is 2. If I chop it up into fourths, right, that will give me my WI, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 intervals in a period of 2. So you take 2, you chop it up into fourth, and this is 1/2. So basically, if I were to ask you, hey, as a bonus question, write this in terms of cosine, you would say, hey, this is just the same exact thing, except I'm going to write pi parentheses x, and I want to shift this graph this way to make it look like this, I shift it to the right, it would be x minus 1/2. And then my k value, of course, stays the same. It's -1, okay? So again, I would just, maybe go to Desmos and just graph both this and see that they're going to coincide. And that will conclude your lesson over here.